Hello, class. This is part 2 of lecture 6A. I will be starting on pages 55 and working our way on into the lecture. So welcome back. Hope you're enjoying this. We have been talking prior to, just in part 1, about the regs that surround food. And now we're going to be looking at the meals. Actually, what do they consist of? So the regs say that meals shall be served every 2 to 3 hours, and when they come to evaluate your center, they will look at the schedule and they will determine, if there's a 2 to 3 hour span between breakfast and lunch, for instance, and lunch to snack. So there has to be that span. Meals shall be served to a child, and they have to be seated with sufficient room to manage their food and their tableware, and supplied with individual eating utensils designed for the use by a child. All children shall be offered the same foods unless the parent or health professional documents a dietary restriction that necessitates an alternative food for the child. And I'm thinking, like a cultural difference. If a parent wants a child to be a vegetarian, those types of things. Also, if a child has an allergy to like peaches or strawberries, which is not unusual, then the parent has to bring in a health professional document that really states that restriction. And then an alternative is actually given. The same to do with milk. Some kids have a lactose intolerant, so they have to drink soy milk. And so you just need to get the doctor to write a note stating that for that child. And then put that on the file, and then either the center provides the soy milk or the parent does. So either way, the child has to drink milk. You can't just say, well, they can drink juice. Milk has to be served. All children are offered the same thing, and a child care center shall provide breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, or a mid-afternoon snack. And if appropriately, they should serve dinner. And remember, the menu has to be posted, and it has to be kept on file for 30 days, and it has to have amendments. Like if you decided the menu said we're going to have green beans today and we had peas, it has to be amended properly, okay? With green beans, actually, whoops, I can't talk today for some reason. Green beans would be scratched out and peas would be written in its place. So the breakfast requirements for the Kentucky regs are this. If you're serving breakfast, you have to have milk, bread, and you have to have a fruit or a vegetable or 100% juice. So you have to have 3 things. You have to have milk, you have to have bread, and you have to have either a fruit or a vegetable or 100% juice. Okay, so a breakfast would be something like this. Whole grain cereal, that's the bread. The milk that you pour on your cereal, that's the milk. And then 100% grape juice or apple juice. That would be considered breakfast. Or you could do milk, cereal, and carrot sticks, if that's what you chose to do. Okay? So you could actually do it like that. Or you could have toast, strawberries, and a glass of milk. So there's lots of different ways that you can mix that up, okay? So a snack includes 2 of the following: milk, a protein, bread, or a fruit, vegetable, or 100% juice. So, we could have an apple, okay, right? We can have an apple and a glass of milk. Or could we have apple, peanut butter, and water? Is that a snack? Yes, because apple is your fruit, your protein is your peanut butter. We only have to have two, and then a glass of water. Okay? Lunch. You have to have milk, a protein, a bread, and either two vegetables, two fruits, or one fruit and one vegetable. This is basically the 5 food groups following the pyramid, the food pyramid. Teach your children what the food pyramid is. They need to learn that. It's very important for them. Okay, so when we go to preparing, now I'm on page 54, preparing and feeding infants. You know, looking at their feeding choices. They do have choices. My nose is itching now, sorry. The parents bring in the breast milk, or they bring in the bottles, and then at age 6 months, they begin to actually eat baby food. So let's talk about breast milk. How do you store breast milk? How do you thaw breast milk? Safety features around breast milk. Well, first of all, you have to think of breast milk as this. It is a bodily fluid from a person, from a lady. And therefore, it needs to be treated as if that person is HIV positive, because it can flow through that, and we do not want other children to drink that milk, because then we have to send them to the hospital because of those reasons behind that, because it is a bodily fluid that has come from a mother. All right? So in storing that, breast milk has to be stored. It has to be refrigerated. It can be frozen. Now, we have always required that children who drink breast milk at our center, that milk is already thawed, so the parents take care of that. Okay? And as much liability as you can place back on the parent and responsibility, the better off the center is to keep themselves from being sued. I hate to say that, but it's all about liability and suing each other. And we don't want to put the center at risk for a lawsuit. Okay? So I would throw the thawing process back onto the parent. Now, your book does give some very good techniques on thawing breast milk at the bottom of page 53. And it says, do not thaw or heat containers or bottles of breast milk in a microwave oven. And I will tell you that when you do that, I would not do that with any milk. Formulas, nothing, because of the hot spots that actually get in the milk. One section of the milk will be cold and another section will be hot. And it'll be so hot that it can actually burn a baby's mouth. And the other part of it is the explosion that can happen. So we do not, number one, want hot liquids to scald an infant in their mouth, and number two, we don't want explosions in our center. But once breast milk has been frozen and then it's been thawed out, it cannot be refrozen. It's done. Okay? All right, so storing the breast milk, we need the full name, of the child, the first and the last name, on the bottle and on the lid. And we need to realize that we have safety precautions when it comes to making sure that other children do not have that milk because of the bodily fluid issue. Okay, so then you have kids that are drinking formula. So how do you prepare that formula? Well, if you have to prepare it in your center, then you need to make sure that you're doing the proper measurements. However, I would encourage the parents to do their formula amounts and the water in the bottles, and then you can just mix them together and it's there. Now, once you do mix it together, the 1 hour rule applies if you do not place them in the refrigerator. But once they come out of the refrigerator and it's ready for the feeding of the infant, you have 1 hour and it's done. Okay? So, this is how the scale goes when we're introducing new solid foods to infants or kids under 12 months. From 4 to 6 months, we're doing semi-solid foods. Well, actually not foods, but semi-solid iron-fortified infant cereal, and we can mix that with their formula. We can mix it with water. Some people choose to mix it with juices, but I steer away from that until they're at least 6 months old, and then we can start introducing some fruit juices to them. And why am I being so picky about this? Because of food allergies. You really want to make sure that you are in charge of watching a child, and then because we don't know what their allergies are at this point. And so we're introducing foods one at a time to ensure that we know that they're okay with those foods before we move on to another. And then we can pinpoint exactly what that child is allergic to if there's any allergies that show up. Now, 6 to 8 months, we're going to be introducing vegetables and fruits. And I put on here which is the best to introduce first. Some people say that you introduce vegetables first because you want the child to acquire that taste of vegetables. If you introduce fruits first, they get an acquiring of a sweet tooth, and they want the sweetness over the vegetable. And I tend to agree with that. Am I right? I don't know. Am I wrong? I don't know. That's just a preference. So research behind that is not very steady. But people that I've talked to who do not like vegetables, if they go back and ask their mothers, they'll say, yeah, I introduced you to fruits. You ate a lot of fruits. Because that acquiring of taste for vegetables, this is where we want to push that positive guidance again. So 8 to 9 months, the food is in 1/4 cubes or things that we can mash up and squish, but it needs to be a little bit more solid instead of the runny type stuffs because kids have teeth. They're forming teeth and need to learn how to do that. And they also need to learn how to start picking up a spoon at 9 months, even if they're just doing this motion like this. At least they're doing that. That's part of the process, okay? They cannot feed themselves on their own. I can't tell you how many teachers I see just put their food out on a tray and expect them to eat. They can't do that. First of all, they don't have the stamina to do that. And second of all, they don't have the skills to do that. It's a teaching process to learn how to eat. Another pet peeve that I have is just taking their food and dumping it on their high chair tray and letting them just smear all in it. Part of that's good and part of it's not, because do you go to a restaurant and pour your food out on the table and start eating it and licking it? No. So we need to begin to teach them good habits and model for them how they need to eat and what eating looks like. By 12 months, they're eating table food and they're drinking whole milk, which is cow's milk, or hoping that they don't have an allergy, but we're hoping that it's going to be cow's milk, okay? Toddlers and preschoolers, when they come out of that baby room at 12 months, empower them to develop positive attitudes toward eating. That eating is a quiet time. It is a time to converse with your friends and talk, but it's pleasurable, and we all sit down. We encourage manners. We encourage new foods. We encourage sitting at the table and eating. We encourage well-balanced meals because we're promoting being healthy. We're promoting that positive guidance that children need so that they don't become obese and couch potatoes. And that's why the regs are so strict about what they're served, when they're served, how they're served, all those different types of things, okay? So this is the end of Part 2, Lecture 6A. Thank you so much for joining.